Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody that is out there listening or looking at me and listening to the sound of my voice. It's Gary here, Words from the Wise. Happy to be here. Thank y'all for listening. Thank y'all for joining us on this journey. You know, we're 2 days here after Christmas in 2025, and I'm excited to start making some videos here in this new series we're going to be working on, which is, it's not going to be focused so much, I think, on different guests, but more about just stories that I'm telling and kind of keeping everybody up to date on what's happening in the Words from the Wise world, as well as focusing on some of the things we can do to help people that have come through our programs as they go forward in the future. And so we're looking to see if this hopefully resonates with you. If you like what you hear, please let us know. If you don't really care for it, give a brother a shout out. Let me know that as well. But today I want to talk about one of the most, I would say, impactful days of my professional and personal life, right? And that was when I really took a turn towards understanding how to make goals that I could accomplish and that I would follow through to the end. It's an interesting story for me anyway, because there was such a significant shift in my mindset when this happened. And you know, you have to understand that first it starts off with, when I was young, growing up, I always had a lot of tenacity. I always had the ability to want to go out and do things. We were, of course, limited with finances and limited with different support systems that my family had, meaning we moved a lot, right? My parents and I moved every year. Every year from kindergarten until 7th grade, I was in a different school every year. So that was always a challenge. I was always resetting. I was always starting new relationships, having to find new opportunities to get involved in things, and never really got the chance to get my footing put down. But then 6th grade, we moved to South Salt Lake, Utah, and we were going to stay there for a while. My dad had a good job working at the Veterans Administration Hospital there in Salt Lake City. My dad was Navy once upon a time. He was a hospital corpsman. Well, first he was an undesignated seaman during Vietnam, and then he converted over to the hospital corpsman rate, which is essentially medical in the Navy. And then when he got out of the service, because he wanted to start his family, he went right into nursing. And so he got his licensed practical nurse LPN certification. He eventually got his registered nurse education, and he got a job at the Salt Lake City Veterans Administration Hospital. That is what brought us to South Salt Lake, Utah. And we were at South Salt Lake. We were involved in the local church. My family raised me as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I was essentially Mormon, right? And at that time, Boy Scouts were heavily involved in our community. And so I got the opportunity to get involved with the Boy Scouts in a space that I had never gotten the chance to do before with Cub Scouts, which was, I got to know the scout leadership. I got to know the other Boy Scouts, and I had the freedom to go by myself. I didn't have to have a parent give me a ride there, or a parent make sure that I went somewhere. And so that freedom gave me the opportunity that I can remember. This is one of the earliest times that I was able to actually start making decisions for myself. And so at 12 years old, I'm going to Boy Scouts, and for whatever the reason, I really enjoyed the structure of it. I really enjoyed the process of, okay, you want to get this merit badge, you have to get these things signed off, you have to prove you've learned the content, or you have to learn that you learned what they wanted you to learn, and then you would go to these different merit badge people that were located all around the city and prove to them that you know the thing, and then you would get the ability to earn this merit badge. And so here I am, 12 years old, and I'm fully committed to this process of making rank in the Boy Scout program, and I'm literally looking up merit badge qualifiers, I guess you would call them, all around the city of Salt Lake. I'm contacting them myself at 12 years old. I'm setting appointments and times to come see them. I'm putting the work in on my own to go learn the things that I need to learn to go see them, to satisfy the knowledge check, right? And it was 2 years later, I not only had a merit badge sash full of badges, but I was also one step away from an Eagle Scout at 14 years old. And what I remember about that process was I just loved the freedom of being able to go and do this. Right. And so when I look back on my life and I look back at the things that brought success to me, that period, that 2 year period was the beginning of what was going to eventually be my military career. There was very similar things that I found in the Boy Scouts that I really enjoyed. And it's very similar to the JROTC program that I currently teach, where the cadets love the structure. They love the ability to earn rank and recognition, which is what, when I look at the merit badge sash, or when I look at the rank on your uniform, it was really recognition. Right, in the military, it was a very similar thought process. You would get rank, and it would be a nice recognition of the work that you're putting in and the opportunities that you had capitalized on, and that people were valuing what you were doing with your time. And oh, by the way, we would also get more money. So then eventually, fast forward years later, of course, I get sidetracked from the Boy Scouts. I leave them at 14 years old because I get more involved in my neighborhood. I get more involved with my friends and girls, and, get to the point. I mean, very quickly do I go from being this young Boy Scout who is about to get his Eagle Scout to being a hellion who's out running the streets with a bunch of friends and dropping out of high school and changing my life for other reasons. I mean, literally, it's a year and a half from being full-fledged Boy Scout to being, and it was high school, right? It was the ninth grade, 10th grade transition that really changed my life. And I think I just got bored of the Boy Scouts because I had really felt like I'd crushed most of what I was doing there. And I was finding there was other things I wanted to do in this world that was not aligned with the Boy Scouts. Check. But so then from 15 to 19, reckless, running wild, living on my own, hanging out with friends, rising through the ranks of my neighborhood, which similar recognition paths. Of course, it wasn't rank on a uniform, it wasn't merit badges, but definitely you wanted the respect. You wanted people to like you. You wanted people to respect what you were saying and listen to you, and you wanted to be a person when you were in the room with other people that people valued their opinion. When I joined the military, it wasn't because I was looking for that structure. I was literally looking for an opportunity to change my circumstance, right? I had pretty much ruined everything at that point. I had no high school education. I had gotten a criminal background at that point. I really didn't have a lot of constructive friends at this point. A lot of my friends had gotten arrested or gotten into places where they were no longer around. And my mom and dad, well, they loved me to death. They were not in the mood to be the ones that funded my continued delusion of going somewhere in life when I was not. And so at the time I joined the military, I was living with my cousin Richard up in Ogden, Utah, working as a baker, working from midnight to 8 o'clock in the morning every day, baking donuts. I was a donut flipper at this point. And, I met this recruiter. He tells me he can get me in the Navy. I go in with my aunt, and I thank God I'm able to pass the test. And I do eventually get a job with the United States Navy. Check. When I joined the military, the structure, I hated it at first. I'm not even going to lie to you. Like, I did not like having so many bosses or so many people telling me what I had to do with my time. And I did not value that support system at that time. I thought that I hated it. Like most young people that join the service, you're not going to have a lot of fun your first year or two in the organization. And I look at that almost anywhere. If you get a job working at a big corporate sector organization and you're starting in the mailroom, you're probably not going to always love being in the mailroom, especially if you forget why you got the job to begin with. So at first, when I was in the Navy, I didn't enjoy it because I felt like the Navy was stopping me from living my life, which for me was going out with my friends, hanging out after work, living in Japan, thinking that I should just be able to do whatever I wanted to do whenever I wanted to do it and not have to work. I know, delusional. It used to kill me when I would have that same challenge with sailors later in my career. I remember I would let people off work early on a Friday. Right, I would go out on the limb. and I would let people off work early on a Friday, thinking that they were going to really appreciate that extra opportunity for time off. And then on Monday, they were going to come back more committed to do a good job. And then it would be on Monday, and the very first thing out of someone's mouth would be like, "Hey, Chief, what time are we getting out of here today?" And I would just be like, "Brother, we just got off early on Friday. Like, today we got to put some work in. Like, are you serious right now?" And what it just taught me was that people only really are selfishly looking out for themselves. And you just have to trust people to be who they are. And they've got to understand what's the reason behind the plan for the day. Right. And don't take it personal, because they're just out for themselves for whatever the reason. And they were like me when I was younger, and the work was actually impeding what they wanted to get done for the day. All right, I digress. So at this time in my life, I remember that I'm going to focus on, which is when I had a real change in my thinking. I was a second class petty officer in the Navy. I had married Erica. I stayed in the Navy at the end of my first enlistment because I was afraid to get out. Let's just be honest. I was afraid to get out. I had gotten to be in a space where I'd not improved in life. And I got the opportunity to go be a Navy recruiter because, hey, I was actually pretty good at the Navy, and I was good talking on my feet, and they liked what they saw. And a recruiter selection team was coming through the far west region or the far east region where I was at in the Navy, and they gave me the opportunity to go be a Navy recruiter. I'm in recruiting. I meet Erica. I'm a third class petty officer. We decide we want to get married. I decide I'm going to stay in the Navy because that's the best thing that I have going for myself to support my family. Erica's all in. She supports that as well. And the goal is to make rank, right? The goal is to make rank. And I remember thinking, man, if I was good at the Navy when I hated it, how much better can I be at the Navy when I stop fighting it so much and start swimming with the current, right? I start working with the people that are trying to get me to do things, and I start trying to take it serious like an adult, like a professional. And that was a game-changing idea for me. That was a game-changing thought process. When I was on recruiting duty, I was listening to these cassette tapes that they gave me, Tony Robbins, Zig Ziglar, Power Talk. And so I was really getting into this idea of thinking about changing your life and using actions and words and thoughts to do it. And of course, I was leveraging that on recruiting duty to get people to join the Navy. But then I started thinking, what if I could sell myself on doing good at the Navy? Which at that time, it really wasn't my favorite thing to do, but it was what I had. And again, I'm selling myself on why I need to go all in to this Navy adventure. Okay. So now we get orders to the USS Ogden out of San Diego, California. And Erica and I moved from Florida to San Diego. And I've been on the ship now for the USS Ogden for about 8 months. And it's going really good. I'm making a lot of great ground. I've got my own shop. I'm studying a lot every day for rank and advancement and taking the test, and I'm finding a lot of success, but I haven't yet achieved a sense of like focus that the plan was working the way I wanted it to work. And Erica, on this particular day, she's working at Pacific Trust Bank, which is a local bank there in San Diego. And the ship I was on at the time, USS Ogden, had started working like tropical hours. So we were going in at 6 a.m, starting our day, and we would be home by noon, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So I was finding myself home earlier in the day than Erica, which was odd, right? Because it had been previously when she was a stay-at-home wife, she was just alone at home, and I was never there because I was working until 5 o'clock in the evening. And then she goes and gets a full-time job and is working, and all of a sudden now I'm getting home at noon, 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So that was definitely a shift up in our lifestyle, and it was an interesting time. This is before kids. And I remember I come home one day, and I turn the television on, and and I'm making lunch, and on the television is the Oprah Winfrey Show. And I don't watch Oprah. It's not something that I tune into, right? Just so happened that this show was on this day. And I turn it on, I'm making my food, and it's on in the background. And on this particular day, Oprah Winfrey has the authors, or a panel of authors, that wrote the book The Secret, or titled The Secret. I don't know if anyone's ever read this book before, but it is a book called The Secret. And I'd never heard of it before at this point. Now, mind you, I'd been into Tony Robbins. I'd been into Zig Ziglar from the cassettes that they gave me on recruiting duty. But I'd never gotten into something like The Secret. And what matters about this is it's not what the book says per se. It's how you receive information and how you turn it into being something actionable for yourself. This day is pivotal for me because as I'm listening to this panel discussion, things happen that change my life. And I will tell you, if you were to have a bar graph of my life or our life, you would see a significant spike after this day. And it's because as I'm making the lunch, I'm hearing these people talk about this concept of visualization and being able to understand that everything in this world has a rhythm. Now, I don't know if this is exactly how they say it. I have read the book since then. I've done a lot of research on it, but I'm remembering back to how I first incorporated this into my mindset. And they were talking about how everything in the world gives off a vibration or a frequency. Okay. And I'm listening. They said, so basically everything. It doesn't matter if it's an innate object or if it's a living thing. Everything has a vibration and reacts to the vibrations of other things that are getting sent out to the world. And that there's this law, the law of attraction, which essentially brings things towards you that are attracted to the frequency or the vibration that you're sending out. And so if you're going to follow this secret path, or if you're going to leverage this secret, then you need to be a person who's able to recognize what it is you want to do. You need to be able to visualize what it is you want to do. I mean, to the point where you can actively put yourself in a state of damn near hypnosis that you can see it, touch it, taste it, feel it, hear it, whatever it is. And then, so that's step one, be able to visualize it, see it, touch it, taste it, hear it in this state of damn near hypnosis. Then work really, really hard every day. But not just to do the thing you want, just in everything in life. Because what you're doing when you're working really hard is you're raising the level of your frequency. You're raising the level of the vibration, which will then begin to bring things towards you quicker. Or quicker, right? So as I'm listening to them talk about this idea on this television show that I don't typically watch, something about it resonates with me. And I'm like, wow, that sounds really interesting, And of course, I was raised in a faith-based home, so I believe in prayer and I believe in faith and I believe that in blessings and I believe that God has things for you in this world, but I also do not believe in preordained destiny. I don't believe that you have no choice in this world. I believe that there are a lot of great opportunities, but you've got to make the right choices to receive the right things. And if you deviate, okay, you get experience, you get wisdom, and you go from there. But I do believe free agency is a main part of this world that we all live in. I think it's a huge gift. I think it's one of the most important gifts we've been given is the ability to make choices. So I'm hearing them talk about this frequency thing and this idea that if I can visualize something, I can actually send out an energy signal to the world and it will probably help things come that direction. Okay. Again, I'm just listening to this while I'm making lunch, right? Just listening to this while I'm making lunch for myself. And I start thinking about how could I use this philosophy, if you will, to possibly achieve my next goal. And at that point, the goal was make first class petty officer, right? I needed to make DC1. I needed to make rank. I needed to get the next rank. I was doing great work. I was doing the things that I needed to do. But making rank wasn't easy, right? At that time in the Navy, for the the damage control rate, which this is like 2004, it was just a tough promotion cycle. And I was coming off of recruiting duty where my evals were not that, I mean, they were MPs, which is must promote, which is like middle of the pack. And I'm doing good on the ship, but I wanted to make rank now. I didn't want to wait. I wanted to make rank just because I needed more money, right? It was about the money for me. It wasn't about anything else at that point in my career. And so I start thinking about, damn near obsessing about how it would feel to make rank. How would I feel when the captain said my name on the loudspeaker, congratulations to the new first class petty officers, and my name will get called? How would I feel when I was able to call Erica and tell her, hey, I had made this next rank, we're going to get more money in our paycheck? How would I feel when all the studying that I was studying every time I stood watch in DC Central? I'd be driving into work, listening to my North Star, my cassette tapes. I was studying all the time because rating exams was such a big part of how you promoted in the United States Navy. I was, of course, working really hard at work, but then I was studying a lot for this test. And so one thing that worked for me was I'd go early to work and I'd go to the gym and I'd get on the treadmill or I'd get on the elliptical and I would do like 45 minutes or whatever it was on this machine. And as I was doing it, I was just thinking about how I would feel when I made a rank, when I got advanced. How would that feeling be? And how I could see it, I could taste it. I was putting myself in that state while exercising. For me, for whatever reason, that's a good time for me to essentially meditate. Well, I remember I go to work one day and there's an EN2 on the ship, which means he was a second class petty officer engineman. And he's like, hey, Wise, the quotas are out for DC1 for first class petty officer damage controlman. They're only making 6 in the whole Navy. And I was just like, oh man, that sucks. Those are not good numbers. And I just really thought that was going to be another 6-month wait. And lo and behold, I make first class petty officer that day. So I was one of only it was either 6 or 9 that made it in the whole Navy, and I made it, right? And at that time I was maybe in the Navy 7 years. So I was very young, very junior, and I was like in the 97th percentile of that advancement examination. And I remember, again, I got to do all the things I'd always dreamed about. I got to call Erica and tell her I made it. I got to feel the pride of hearing my name on the speaker and hearing the commanding officer say my name. I got the chance to get this recognition from all of the people in my shop and in the ship, and just to know that there was not this pressure on me right away to have to keep studying maybe to make the next rank. Like, that was just a huge relief. And then I remember thinking, like, wow, I don't know if this whole thinking about what I wanted worked. I don't know if this whole secret or this visualization or whatever it was worked, but I think I'm going to keep trying to do it, right? Why not? Like, when I get on the treadmill or when I get on the elliptical, I like when I'm thinking about the future, and I get excited about the opportunities for what we're going to do in the future, and that helps me work out anyway. So why not just keep the two aligned, right? So, very shortly after that, making rank to DC1, the next path is I'm looking at going into the LDO program for the Navy, which is the Limited Duty Officer program. At that point in my career, I had not been exposed to really any strong chief petty officers, in my opinion. It was really about this time I was meeting people like Ian O'Meara, who was a big pivotal person in my life, but really the person who I was leveraging the most in my career was my DCA, my damage control assistant, a gentleman by the name of Russell Bryant, who was a former damage control chief petty officer, but he had converted to the officer community in the wardroom. And he was really the person that was giving me a lot of advice. And here I am now, a young DC1. I just make it in like November of 2005. 4, I put on DC1, and I'm just like, okay, in January of 2006, I'm going to take the advancement exam for LDO purposes. So I will have been a DC1 for an entire year, and I'm going to take the advancement exam for LDO purposes. And if I make board, then I'm going to apply for it going LDO in, let's see, so make it 04 and 06, I'm going to apply for LDO, right? So it's a year. So for that next year, I am every day in the gym thinking about putting on khakis, thinking about putting in my LDO package, thinking about the pride in Erica when I get to tell her that, oh my God, now I'm going to be an officer, or now I'm going to be a part of the wardroom, or that I'm making another rank. I'm getting another opportunity to promote, more money for our family, better money for housing, right? And I'd get so excited. I'd get so fired up. And then what I would do is just work my tail off. I would just work. I would run the shop. I'd run the division. I was doing all these different things at work that were finding success for me. But secretly, well, not even secretly, because I was telling people that I was taking the test for LDO purposes. And everyone would just kind of look at me like I was this young first class that really, I didn't know what I was doing. I'll be honest with y'all. I had no real clue what it all entailed, but that was what I was going to do. I was taking the test for LDO purposes, and if I made board for LDO, then I was going to put in an LDO package. That was the plan. So November 2005 comes around, 1 year later, my first evaluation as a first class petty officer, paid, right? And great eval, right? Sailor of the Year, #1, all that good stuff. And I'll never forget, I take the test for LDO purposes and I make board. And we're on deployment, Western Pacific deployment, and it's like March of 2006. And I make board for LDO. And so now I'm looking at the LDO package process and what do I got to do? And I'm trying to figure out all these things. And the DCA I had been working with, Mr. Bryant, was gone at this point. So I really was just figuring out on my own. And the CMC comes up and says, hey, man, hey, Wise, why don't you want to be a Navy chief? And I was like, Master Chief, I'm not up for chief. So I'm going to put in for LDO this year. And if I don't make LDO, then next year I'll apply for chief and LDO, whatever. He said, you want to be a chief or not, Wise? I say, Master Chief, I don't get the question. Of course I want to be a chief. I just want to promote, right? Like ultimately, now of course I don't tell him that. I just tell him sure, I'm just not up for it yet. Well, he puts in a waiver for me to get a time and rate early promote waiver, which I didn't even know was a thing. Nobody put that in for me before the chief's exam, right? If I had never taken the test for LDO purposes, and that would have never been even an option, right? But he puts it in. Comes back with the waiver approved and just walks up to me one day and hands me a profile sheet that says now CPO selection board eligible, and says put your chief's package in. And that's due sooner than LDO packages are due. So I remember I go talk to my boy Jardea Jenkins, who was the career counselor at the time. And I said, hey, man, how do I put a Chiefs package in, right? And him and I work it together. He's putting his Chiefs package in at the same time. And we both apply for Chief Petty Officer that year. And really, there was Danny Burns. There was Donnie Lord. There was a whole bunch of us made it on the Ogden this year. And long story short, I end up making Chief Petty Officer that summer, July of 2006. When I look back on this whole process of visualization and the secret and leveraging rhythm and vibration, it worked because everything I was visualizing came true, right? Uniform change, status change, where I ate lunch would change, position of authority would change, promotion opportunity and or the ability to go tell Erica that I'd gotten another chance to promote had changed. Like all these things. It just didn't come in the form of being an officer. Because I believe it doesn't always differentiate those specifics. It just it brought to me exactly everything I was visualizing. and it brought even faster than if I would have forced it to go a different route, if that makes sense. If I was so dead set on going officer and not putting a Chiefs package in that year, then I would have, who knows what would have happened, right? But because me being willing to take all opportunities that were presented, all options were on the table at all times, and just keep playing the best cards that you're given, it worked. And oh, by the way, at that point in my career, we were decommissioning the USS Ogden, and I had just gotten slammed with orders. I had orders originally to go to Great Lakes to be a boot camp drill instructor, and they turned me down because of the tattoos on my arm. And my commanding officer was pissed because, again, I was his Sailor of the Year. He wanted to fight him because he was like, how are they going to not let my Sailor of the Year go be an RDC? And I wanted to be an RDC because I wanted to say I had done everything in the Sailorization process of our Navy, from being a recruiter to being a recruit to being a works center supervisor and a maintenance man and a leading petty officer. And I wanted to do every step in the rung on my path up the food chain. But at that time, Erica and I were also going through some very hard financial times, because the secret, or this vibration theory, can also work bad, right? So the good example was making rank. Here was a bad example, right? Erica and I make first class. I make first class. We're making decent money, but I'm recognizing how much money I have for housing allowance that I'm not using because I'm living in military housing. And all my buddies in 2004, 2005 are buying houses in San Diego and just making money hand over fist. I mean, they're buying houses and then selling them a year later, making like $200,000, $150,000. They're just making money. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, we're missing this opportunity to get out here and get in the game, right? And so I'm telling Erica, like, we need to get out of military housing and go buy a house. Of course, she's nervous about that because we don't want to be stuck in San Diego. She wants to get back to the East Coast. We moved out to the West Coast to be closer to my family who were in Utah. But after being there for a few years, we're looking to try to get back to the East Coast. And so that's her thought. But I'm just thinking, man, we're wasting all this money and all this opportunity to possibly get into the real estate game. And I've read Rich Dad, Poor Dad at this point in time. I'm talking to people. I'm listening to things on the radio. Of course, and this is, again, 2004, 2005. This is before YouTube and all that other stuff really kicks off. But I'm hearing the opportunities that are out there. And I am now visualizing buying a house. I am now visualizing getting into this real estate space and an opportunity for my family to change our trajectory. Erica and I are talking about having a family, and I'm thinking about how can I best invest our money to do something significant for our family. And I remember I discovered this neighborhood by where we lived at that had a beach that was man-made. And the man-made beach was surrounded by a pool that was man-made and a park that was man-made. And I remember thinking, like, what a freaking amazing neighborhood. Like, if you had a home over here, this would be amazing, because you would never need to go to the public beaches of San Diego, which were nowhere near as much fun as the beaches in Florida, right? But you would never have to go to those beaches, because you could just walk over to the park in your neighborhood, in your community, and have the beach. And I would start going to this neighborhood whenever I was stressed, and I would like drive around it. I would run in that neighborhood. And I started really just thinking, like, if you lived in this neighborhood, if you owned property in this neighborhood, you were successful. Like, I was starting to really believe that a status symbol was having property in this neighborhood. And that was just something I was aligning my frequency to. Oh, by the way, I was still working the stuff at work, but this was another frequency I was sending out to the universe, right? So then Erica and I have this conversation about possibly looking to buy a home. right? Possibly looking to buy a home. And as soon as she said she was okay to looking to buy a home, I had us looking at properties the very next day. And what started as us looking at properties had me find a property that was literally 3-minute walk away from that man-made beach. Like the back door of that property was a down the sidewalk walk to that man-made beach. And it went from, okay, we're going to possibly look at buying property to closing on that property that I just told you about, 3-minute walk away from the beach, and moving into that property within a month. And that's exactly what we did. And it was the worst financial decision of my adult life, right? Because we buy this property in 2005, right? I go on deployment. Erica's living in the property. Come back from the deployment, a chief petty officer, selectee, and put on chief. And I got orders to go to be in Great Lakes to go be a drill instructor. But what's happening at this point in 2006 is the market is starting to freaking not work out well for us, right? People are not wanting to buy properties at higher value because the bubble's about to burst. It's coming, right? And so I'm looking at this property that I had bought a year ago, and I thought, oh, I was going to buy it, and then I was going to sell it and mark it up, I don't know, $15,000 and make $5,000, $7,000. Who knows, $50,000. All these things could be possible. Well, guess what? At this point in time, I'm going to lose money, right? I'm going to lose money if I try to sell the property now. And that's a bad thing. So I got these orders to go to Great Lakes, go be a drill instructor, and then they cancel my orders because of my tattoos. Commanding officer wants to fight it. I say, sir, you know what? I don't want to fight it. Let's just go ahead and figure out something else, because secretly I know I can't leave San Diego. Right? And so I'm a DC1, not a chief selectee yet when this conversation's happening. I'm on deployment, and I contact the detailer, who is how you get orders in the Navy at this point in time. And I say, hey man, I need to stay in San Diego. I need to stay in San Diego because my house is not going good on the market and I can't move. And that's just my thought process. He says, okay, I'm going to put you back on recruiting duty again. I was just like, no, that's horrible. Don't do that. Like, I'm leaving a ship where I've been very successful. I need to go to another ship because I need to make chief or LDO or whatever it is. He was like, nope, you're done with your sea duty time. I need people on recruiting duty, but you know what? You're not going to be a recruiter. I'm going to put you on staff duty at recruiting district San Diego. Like, that's even worse. Like, when you're on recruiting duty, the recruiters are the ones that get all the love. The staff does not get a lot of support. And he's like, sorry, that's where you're going. And it's tough because here I am thinking, like, okay, I've got to stay in San Diego because I need to figure out this house thing, but this is going to kill my career. Now, mind you, I got into this whole thing because of my visualizing living in that neighborhood, living in that space. You're going to be successful if you live there. That's going to solve your problems. That's exactly what you need to do, right? And here I am in this tough financial pickle. Thank God I make chief, and the detailer makes chief. And I'm able to contact the detailer, and because of making chief, I'm able to renegotiate orders, and I get the orders to go to a float training group San Diego to be an anti-terrorism force protection trainer, which is a whole nother story because I changed that and become a DC chief over there. But the idea was I had to go there, be anti-terrorism force protection trainer. The good news is I was able to get out of that debacle of leaving San Diego, and I was able to get out of the recruiting orders. The bad news is that it's, again, here I am in this financial pickle where my house was completely upside down. And oh, by the way, I had bought it on an adjustable rate mortgage because at that point in time, that's what everybody was doing. Buy them, hold the house for 2 years, sell it, get out of it, and make a bunch of money. And now everything is starting to crash around us, right? And it was in 2008 when we eventually short sold the property, got out of it, and had to eventually go to Japan to recover financially from that very tough decision. I say all that to say be careful the things that you're visualizing for, and make sure that they're productive. Make sure that they're aligned with your long-term goals. Make sure that they're healthy for you and your family. Do your research, because the universe or the process of this visualizing doesn't always differentiate what's good for you or not good for you. It's just going to bring things your direction based off of the energy you're sending out. And I continue to use this method to this day. I all the time. And wisdom is differentiating what's healthy and what's not healthy, and recognizing you don't have to always say yes to everything that comes into your path. Right? I didn't have to say yes to buying that property. I didn't have to say yes to putting in a Chiefs package. I didn't have to say yes to go into a float training group San Diego with the anti-terrorism opportunity. Right? You do have the choice to say no, but timing plus preparation equals destiny. Okay, and step one for me was learning to really lock in on what I want, on what you want. So that's, if I had to give anyone advice based off of my experience, if you're a person who wants to do something with your life significantly, it's being able to really say what you want, know what you want. Don't just generally speak about it, but be able to write it down or be able to visualize it. Whether it's I want to make a rank, whether I want to get a job promotion, whether I want to look a certain way in the mirror, whether I want to, the home I'm living in right now is exactly the kind of home that I would visualize about for most of my life, right? So be able to, from down to how the backyard would look, from down to how the kitchen would look. Like, you have to be able to really get specific. Because if you can't do that, do you really want it? Like, if you can't do that, then it's okay. Take time to figure out what you want. Number two is once you know what you want, be able to really allow yourself to believe you can do it. Be able to convince yourself that you can do it, and you can do it through a few different things. Number one, I believe that God wants good things for you, and as long as you do the things He needs you to do, wants you to do, and hopes that you do, you're going to get blessings in return that are going to help bless your life, and hopefully those blessings are going to compound into you eventually receiving the things you're praying for. Right? Because essentially, in my mind, this is a manifestation of prayer. This is a way of praying, even though it may not be the traditional method. Right? Number two, so not only having faith that God will bless you with these things, number two is believing that hard work will pay off. Right? And as you are out there hoping, praying, believing, visualizing, you are working hard constructively. I hate when I see people just working, but they don't have any direction in what the work is that they're doing. You must ensure that the things you're doing with your energy are aligned with your goals. If you can figure out a way to align your personal goals with your professional goals, it will be like walking on that moving sidewalk in the airport. You will be moving so much faster towards the things you want in this life. It's when you're not working with professional and personal aligned, that's where you're conflicted, and that's where you're struggling. And so if you're a person who's struggling with unhappiness in one of those aspects, whether it be personal or professional, take some time to figure that out. Take some time to figure that out and humble yourself and recognize that you might need to make a change so you can get those things squared away so that you can move forward again. Because living a life fulfilled with purpose will be way more fun than always trying to balance looking left, looking right, looking left, looking right, because you're not sure which way you want to go. Now, if you're at a crossroads, slow it down. Take it all in. Get some information, get some mentorship, talk to some people that can give you the advice that you need, understanding that once you make the decision, you move, right? Shoot, move, communicate, move on to the next thing. So number one, believe you can do it, right? Leveraging faith, leveraging belief system, leveraging everything you know within your own being and the power of prayer. Number two, align personal and professional to get you to where you believe you want to go. Number three, tell people what you're going to do. Your spouse, your friends, people that care about you. Now, can you tell everybody? No, you just can't. It sucks. I know you want to, but not everyone's going to be happy for you in this world, man. It sucks to hear that. It really does. Hurts when people you thought care about you talk about you behind your back, tell you what you're not going to be able to do, say that you're over there daydreaming some craziness and you're never going to make it work. Or worse, they try to actively prevent you from accomplishing something, because if you accomplish that thing and they don't accomplish whatever their thing is, they're going to feel less than. So they feel like so they can feel validated, they want to stop you. You know, you're going to catch hate in this world. You're going to have people that do not want to see you find success. It's tough. I'm sorry to tell you that if you didn't know that already. Look at it as a compliment. Look at it as, for me, it at times gives me energy because I like to prove my haters wrong. I like for people to let me know who they are. So thank you for showing me who your true colors are when I know that. But stay focused, man. You cannot get distracted, but it's going to hurt. I wish it didn't, but it will. But again, tell the people that really matter to you in your life. But you can't tell everybody. I learned that the hard way. I learned that especially during my time on the George Washington. I learned that especially during a float training group San Diego. I learned it as a CMC. Not everybody wants to always see you win. But for the ones that really do support you and depend upon you, especially, your wife, your kids, your parents, your really good friends, they're going to back you up and they're going to support you. And you've got to get that group of people aligned, because it's going to get hard out there. Right? And then, I would say the last piece is just be consistent. Be consistent. You got to show up every day. You got to do something every day to move the ball forward. You got to do something every day to make progress towards something along that goal. Now, I'm not saying you just focus only on doing things toward that specific goal, because again, the universe doesn't need that. You just need to raise your frequency. You've got to live a life of energy, and you've got to be somebody who's outside willing to work. Help people live in a space of gratitude. Be thankful for the things you got. Be optimistic for the things that are coming. Share with people that are around you the good fortune that you have, and help other people come up. Don't just be quiet about it. I believe one of the most important things in this world for us as humans is to share our stories with each other, to share our good fortunes, to share our lessons learned, because some days you're going to fail. You're going to not do good. And matter of fact, those are the days that you really got to learn to look at and pick them apart. Get that after action report done. Debrief yourself. What the heck happened? How did I let us get in this situation? How did I let us bomb this? And how can I ensure that we don't let this happen again? And then how can I share this story with other people so maybe they can learn from my bad experience? Whether it's your kids, which that's my favorite, my sons, my students, people that come to me for mentorship or advice, talking over with my wife so we can figure out how to best support one another through the challenging times. All good things. Okay, well, I'm going to wrap this one up here today, folks. I really appreciate you. I'm making another video here in the next week or two. It's going to be about 7 areas to focus on if you're a young person, right? So look forward to that. It is after Christmas time right now here in sunny Ocala, Florida. We're looking forward to wrapping up 2025. It's been a great year. Looking forward to 2026. Steady as we go. Looking to see where this Words from the Wise podcast goes. Hopefully y'all enjoyed today's story. Hopefully you'll get something out of it. And I really appreciate everybody that listens to the sound of my voice, listens to the content that we're putting out there, supports my family. And thank you very much for your time. You guys have a great day, and I will talk to y'all later. Bye.